Okay, and big matter. So at that point, I said, okay, let's try to be a freelancer, and then I never stopped, and I'm still there. So today, here are the main points I'm going to talk about today. First of all, I'm going to speak about what it entails to be a freelancer. What kind of work do you do in general, in my experience. Then I'll talk about some business frequently asked questions, like how do you deal with clients, how do you navigate the market, and so on. Then I will focus on the skills and tools that, in my opinion, you need as a freelancer in data science. And finally, I will spend a little time talking about the generalist versus specialist dilemma, which is, I mean, it's not only true in the freelance world, but it definitely applies here. So, speaking about the type of work that I've done, that a freelancer can do, in terms of the contract, we're talking about 1 to 6 month full-time contracts, maybe longer if it's a part-time job, which means on average we would get 2 to 5 contracts a year, more or less. It always depends on your personal situation, but this is what I've been doing so far. In terms of type of projects, the 3 main types that I've done, that I've seen, are machine learning proof of concept. So maybe with a company that doesn't have experience with machine learning or data science and has some data they want to exploit, or a new, they want to go into a new direction, and they don't want to invest their own resources, and so they ask for help with that. Second thing is machine learning deployment or infrastructure. So you come in and you help with pre-existing machine learning pipeline or models, and you improve upon it, or maybe you take a proof of concept and you deploy it in production, and you make it more stable, more usable. And finally, what I call ETL, which is a term normally used by data engineers, because this is a type of project that actually goes more into towards the data engineering role, even though it's not really that, because data engineering is more involved with specific tools. Anyway, this type of project entails doing some data processing, some setting up some pipelines to gather data, to set up data sources for the users of your data that will probably use it to do visualization or train machine learning models. In terms of integration with teams, so how you work with people, in my experience, I would say 40% of the times you work as an independent contractor. So you do all the data science related work, and then you interact with people with different roles, so managers or other people not technical roles in general, or maybe software developers, but who don't have really data science expertise. 50% of the time you were integrated in a bigger team. So you could be in a team of data scientists or in a cross-functional team. So maybe you have a software developer on one side and data engineer on the other. And 10% of the time you could be a team lead, depending on your experience. So you would have a team of, let's say, junior data scientists that you have to lead to develop a machine learning product. In terms of time management, let's see. Sorry. In terms of time management, I would say 5% of your time it's taken by paperwork, so taxes, finances, pensions, and so on. 80% of the work is actual data science, and 50% of the work is finding clients, interacting with clients, doing networking, doing self-promotion, and things of that nature. In terms of self-promotion, what does that mean? It can mean a lot of things. In particular, you might have a personal website where you write your own blog posts. You might have guest blog posts on other platforms. You might participate in conferences or meetups and speak there to let people know what you do, and so make yourself known. So let's go now to how you navigate the market. So how do you find clients? First of all, this is one of the big questions. My experience is a very good idea to try and find freelancing platforms that can help you as a beginner. I've in the past I've used one which is that's called PVGo. They're based in London in the UK, and they're kind of a special one because they're targeted to former academics, but I think they're open to all. So you should check that out. Of course, with platforms, you tend to be paid a bit less, but you have other perks that kind of compensate for that. The second thing you can do is to do networking, to go around and speak at events and meet people, meet new people, and meetups, hackathons, conferences, all that. And this increases the probability that you could meet potential clients or people who can refer you. So third, job platforms can be used as well, such as LinkedIn or Indeed or all of those. This is kind of the third option in my opinion, in the sense that there's a lot of noise there. They're not mainly targeted to freelancers, so your success rate might be a bit low. So, but it is an option. Other very important question: how to price yourself? Well, that depends on the market. So it depends on how other freelancers price themselves. So you should definitely start asking around in your network, people who know freelancers or other freelancers directly. Usually if you go and ask, they will just tell you, at least they will tell you a range. And then when you start charging your clients, you should always be ready to negotiate and try to increase your rate. Another important point is with clients is expectation management. What does it mean? It means to make sure that the client knows what to expect from you. And in this respect, for example, at the beginning of the project, you should define very precisely what is the time span and the scope of the project, and possibly put that into the contract. So that there are no surprises. You should also never mention in the contract that you're delivering some software, because that's gonna go against you in the end, because the client is never gonna be completely satisfied and you're gonna have to work for free, possibly. And then I really recommend doing regular check-ins or reports with your clients or with your person of with the reference within the company you're working with. Something very close to what could be the agile approach. So keeping your client in check, making sure that they understand what you're doing and you understand what they expect, so there are no surprises. So now let's talk a bit about the skill set. First thing, I think maybe the most important skills that you have to have as a freelancer, even though they're always very important, are soft skills like communication and negotiation. You need to be able to make yourself understood, be able to explain complex concepts to all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, not only technical people. That will make sure that people trust you, people understand what you're doing, and they're comfortable working with you. Second thing, you need to be able to negotiate. in order to to be paid a fair rate. So really, communication, negotiation are really two very important skills. Cannot stress that enough. Then in terms of growth opportunity and growing your skills, this is definitely big in freelancing, even though it depends on your choice of projects and on your, let's say, ambition. But theoretically, you could grow as much as you want depending on the projects you take and you look for. Of course, depending on what kind of roles you want to grow into, this might be more or less difficult. Like if you want to become a manager, maybe this is not the right way, but you get what I mean here. Then learning opportunities. This is very similar as the previous point. You can really learn all you want, in the sense that you choose the projects that you take, and the harder they are, the more new they are for you, the more you learn. The problem with that is that if you really have to learn a lot for the project you're doing, you cannot really charge for that. So you should expect working double for that, or charging half, depending on how you look at it. So now let's talk a bit about the tools. This is just a non-exhaustive list of what I've encountered in my experience, and it's based on my personal experience. So this can vary a lot depending on what kind of projects you do, how specialized you are, and so on. But I've tried to give you, I'm trying to give you the most important things that I've encountered in my experience. I would divide different type tools in terms of productivity, data processing, data visualization, machine learning, and DevOps. And now I will show you what I mean by this. Well, first of all, I would say the basics you need to have to be a data scientist. I mean, not even freelancing. This is Python, of course. If you work with R, that would be R. So Python and Pandas, Jupyter notebooks are essential to be, to create your experiments, to try things in a quick way, and to iterate very quickly. And then Git, I think, is an essential tool as well, without which it's really hard to work with other people. Then, speaking of data processing tools, there's SQL. You could also put this into the basics, the essentials. But I found that it's not used that much. You don't really use it that much. You probably use it every once in a while. You need to know how to use it. You need to know what it is. But I haven't heavily used it in my experience. Then there's a personal favorite of mine, which is Dask, which is a Python library for working with out of memory, out of core data sets. So data that doesn't fit in your computer memory, and that can also be used in a cluster, sort of as a big data tool as well. And then third point is actual big data tools, like for example Spark. Or other cloud provider solutions like Google Cloud Platform or AWS. So next are data visualization tools. First of all is Matplotlib. If you work with Python, this is really like essential. You cannot really go without knowing how to use that. Then I really like to recommend Seaborn, which is very useful if you're doing statistical visualizations and you need also kind of a nicer look for your plots that comes out of the box. So it's kind of a very useful small library. And third, Plotly. I really like that because it's an interactive plotting interactive charts. It's a library for plotting interactive charts. So you can use it to display your analysis on web pages. You can use them to show your work to clients or other people that can interact with your visualization without really knowing anything about Python or anything technical. Next, machine learning tools. First of all, scikit-learn. This would also be an essential for me. Really very nice, very useful machine learning library. Then I've used a lot NLP libraries like Spacey and GenSim. I've used time series libraries like Prophet, which is really nice. And as a fourth point, I put deep learning libraries, even though deep learning is kind of a standalone chapter, which is too big to talk about now. But in my experience, I've found that deep learning, you don't even need to use deep learning that much. Usually, you can use deep learning tools as off-the-shelf tools, like for example, using transfer learning, as Jose was mentioning in the previous talk. So you can use pre-trained models and adapt them to your need. But you rarely have to go too deep, sorry for the pun, into deep learning, because it's such a vast domain, and you don't really need that in general if you work as a data scientist, unless you're a specialist, that is. And finally, last but not least, DevOps tools. I think this is a really underrated category, but can really help you, especially if you start working towards deployment of models or more towards software development. These are all tools that can help you a lot and can make your life so much easier. So first of all, virtual environments. This is also almost an essential for me, especially when you start working with different projects, with different Python versions, with different library versions. Personally, Conda is an essential tool for me to achieve that, being able to switch between things seamlessly. You'll need an IDE, interactive development environment. I like PyCharm. Otherwise, there's Vim and VS Code, which are nice and possible option as well. Docker is a really nice thing to have if you want to deploy anything. CI/CD tools, continuous integration, continuous deployment. Really important if you want to test your code, if you want to do continuous deployment of your models. I personally like very much GitLab CI. And fifth point, databases. I don't think you need to know a lot about databases, but a basic understanding of their or how they work, and how to deal with them is very, very important and can help you a lot in different situations, interacting, for example, with software developer and data engineers. I had another point, I forgot. Web development. This is kind of an extra, I would say, but it depends on what kind of project you take. For example, REST APIs are really, really important when you want to deploy machine learning models. So you need to know how they work, and you probably need to know how to build one. While HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they're less important, but they can be very useful to know, at least on a surface level, if you want to build dashboards or want to showcase your work on the web. And since pretty much everything on the web is built on this technology, it's a pretty important thing to know, in my opinion. So let's take a moment now to talk about the generalist versus specialist problem or issue. So this means, being able to do many things not so well, or maybe a few or only one thing very well. So if you are a generalist, the advantage is that you probably have more work opportunities because you can do more things. So you're able to approach more clients, more people, and get more options. The problem there is that it's much harder to market yourself, because if you go to somebody and say, I can do everything, they're going to tell you, but I only need you to do this thing. So they would hire a person that goes there and say, I can do this thing that you need very well. On the other hand, as a specialist, the advantage is that you can be very marketable for the reason that I just mentioned. Sorry. And you can say, I do this one thing, I do it very, very well, and clients really like that. Also, you can usually demand a higher price tag because usually specialists are not so easy to find, and yeah, so usually you can actually demand a higher rate. On the other hand, you're going to be less adaptable, so you're going to get less opportunities, and also you're going to be dependent on the market segment that you're in. So if at some point the thing you're very good at becomes obsolete, and nobody needs it anymore, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be forced to do something about it, to change. So I think there's it's an even tie, and it really depends on what you like and what you want, what you like to do. So this brings me to my to the end of my talk. I think what I can say about freelancing at this point is it's a very big topic. There's a lot to it. We could probably keep talking about this for a long time. Each one of the points could be expanded at will. But the good thing is that you can start small. You can start with a little project and progress how you like, and really tailor it to your own taste, to your own passion. So I think it's a really exciting job to have, really full of opportunities, and you're definitely not going to get bored being a freelancer. And yeah, so with that, I thank you for listening, and you can find me here, and these are my contact details. Thank you.